Hey everyone, it's Tobes and welcome to your second monitor. It's Pride, or it was. Magic Presents Pride was a Commander event Wizards did just this past weekend. This is the second time they've done it, and this year they had actual prize support for it in the form of this cool Chromatic Lantern promo featuring Nico Aris. The idea behind the event was pretty simple. All eligible commanders have partner, so you can build a commander deck with any two commanders you like, because anyone can be with anyone. You have to be aware that you can't go beyond two commanders with abilities like Partner With or Friends Forever, Doctor's Companion, Choose a Background, that sort of thing. But you can still put together a lot of really cool combinations. And I spent this month showcasing a new Pride deck every week, so feel free to check out the links in the description to see some of what I came up with. If you missed this event, that is totally fine. You can still build Pride decks and play them with your friends. It's Commander. So just ask if they're cool with it and it should be fine. Or you can get ready for next year. Speaking of the future, since today is the last day of Pride 2025 and it's only a few short weeks before Edge of Eternities drops, I thought I'd cook up something special using the upcoming rules change, which is that starting with Edge of Eternities, any legendary vehicle or spacecraft with a power and toughness box can be your commander. This expands those eligible commanders that we talked about for Pride decks, giving us more possible combinations for the future. And so, as a nod to that, I built a deck with the first spacecraft previewed for Edge of Eternities, the Seriema. And every good ship needs someone to captain her, so who better than Captain Rex Nebula? Probably a lot of people, but he's who I picked. Yeah. So I will get to the deck in just a moment, but first let's take a look at the breakdown of how I build decks. So I like to start with about 30 cards, which is my game plan. This is what the deck is trying to do, and of course how it wins. Then I have 30 more cards split about evenly between card advantage, acceleration, and interaction. So generally draw spells, ramp spells, and removal spells, although that's not like a hard and strict definition for these terms. It depends on what you're trying to do with your deck, who your commanders are, that sort of thing. I'll usually throw in 1 or 2 Wraths, although sometimes none, sometimes more than that, and about 38 lands because I like to hit my land drops. Most importantly, all of this is built around the commander, or in this case, commanders. I want to be able to showcase what I've put in the command zone and let it really shine. So that is my breakdown. And next, let's meet our commanders. We'll talk about what the deck is trying to do, and then we'll get into the rest of it. We're going to start with Captain Rex Nebula, which is a 2/2 human pilot employee for 1 a red and a white, and I would love to read him to you, even though he is quite long, but apparently Captain Nebula has undergone a rules change. So let's take a look at what his actual Oracle text is. It says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, choose target non-land permanent you control. Until end of turn, it becomes a vehicle artifact with base power and toughness, each equal to its mana value, and it gains Crew 2 and an ability called Crash Land, which says whenever this vehicle deals damage, roll a 6-sided die. If the result is equal to this vehicle's mana value, sacrifice this vehicle, then it deals that much damage to any target. Now, what does all this mean? Basically, Captain Nebula is just a 2/2 that has a triggered ability that triggers at the beginning of combat on your turn. You get to pick any non-land permanent you control, including him if you really wanted to, although I don't recommend it. And until end of turn, that permanent becomes a vehicle artifact with Crew 2 and a power and toughness box, each equal to its mana value. It loses whatever other types and subtypes it had, although it keeps its super types. So if it was legendary, it'll remain legendary. It also has the ability Crash Land, which just says whenever it does damage, that's any kind of damage, you roll a d6, and if that result equals the vehicle's mana value, you sacrifice the vehicle and then have it do that much damage to any target. That seems pretty cool. We're going to talk about how I'm using Captain Nebula in this deck in just a moment, but the idea that at the start of combat, you can turn any of your things into a cool vehicle and then crew it with just a crew of 2, which Captain Nebula himself can do, it seems pretty fun. The whole Crash Landing ability is really cool too. And that's kind of what the deck is built around, but we'll talk about that in just a moment after we talk about the Seriema. The Seriema, as you can see here, has a red border because Moxfield recognizes it's not legal yet, but it will be in just a few short weeks. So the Seriema, which I hope I'm pronouncing right, I think it's a beautiful name, is a spacecraft, a legendary artifact spacecraft. First time we've seen spacecrafts before, for 1 white, and it has a power and toughness of 5/5. When the Seriema enters, search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. So tutor for a legendary creature, of which I believe we have 8 others besides Captain Nebula in this deck. And the Seriema has an ability called Station, which says tap another creature you control, put charge counters equal to its power on this spacecraft, but do that only as a sorcery. Once the Seriema has 7 or more charge counters, it becomes a 5/5 flying creature with the ability other tapped legendary creatures you control have indestructible. So we're trying to get a bunch of charge counters on the Seriema. We can only do it at sorcery speed, but that's okay. We've got plenty of creatures in this deck who are going to be able to tap to get our beautiful spacecraft flying through space. And then once we have it, we've got a 5/5 flyer that protects our legendary creatures that are tapped, like, for example, Captain Nebula once he's crewed a vehicle. So here's what our deck is trying to do. Captain Nebula can make a non-land into a vehicle with power and toughness equal to their mana value, and if it does, we roll a d6 and we lose that permanent if the die result is equal to the permanent's mana value. But I thought, what if the mana value is greater than 6? Does that mean we just can't lose it to the trigger because we can't roll higher than 6? That is exactly right. And so our deck is crammed full of cards with mana value 7 or greater. We're here to ramp hard into as many big dumb bombs as we can and slam them into our opponents. Although we have some ways to give them haste, most of our huge creatures will come in and be unable to attack right away, which means we can tap them to activate the Seriema's Station ability if we don't plan to block with them. The Seriema will protect our legends when they're tapped, and she'll even find one that we need the most when she first comes in. We want to be a problem at the table for our friends and to do our best Zap Brannigan impersonation as we send wave after wave of our cards at our friends. And we're doing it fairly. There's no cheating things in from the graveyard in this deck. That said, I built it a little more expensively than I normally do. As usual, check the considering section below on the Moxfield page for more budget-minded options. So let's get into our game plan and start talking about what I've called heavy hitters. These are things that are at least mana value 7 and are here to do a lot of work for us. We'll get into how we get these on the battlefield in just a moment. But first, we're going to start with Angelic Arbiter. For 5 white, we get a 5/6 angel with flying that says each opponent who cast a spell this turn can't attack with creatures, and each opponent who attacked with a creature this turn can't cast spells. So it's one of these effects where our opponents have to choose between casting spells and attacking. This is a way to protect ourselves or to do a little bit of politicking. We can, if we want, I guess, reveal this card from our hand and say, this is really going to slow you down. I don't have to cast this yet, but maybe you want to look away from me. Probably that's giving away too much information at a lot of tables. So Angelic Arbiter is just here to help us by making sure that if we're getting attacked, we're not going to be hit with some spells as well. There's not going to be any kind of interaction. And if they're casting spells, we don't have to worry about them attacking us. Next up from the Doctor Who decks is Cyberman Squadron, a 7 generic artifact creature, Cyberman, with power and toughness of 5/5 that says non-legendary artifact creatures you control have Myriad. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. Let's talk about it. Myriad is whenever a creature with Myriad attacks, for each opponent other than the defending player, you can make a token that's a copy of that creature, tapped and attacking the player, that player, or a planeswalker they control, and then those things get exiled at the end of combat. So, for example, if we had Cyberman Squadron out, and then Angelic Arbiter attacks, we would make a if Angelic Arbiter attacks while it is a vehicle, turned into a vehicle by Captain Nebula, and then crewed, Angelic Arbiter will attack as a 7/7, because that is its mana value. It will still have flying and still have its other abilities. And if Cyberman Squadron is in play, Angelic Arbiter is an artifact creature because it's a vehicle. So it's a non-legendary artifact creature, so it will have Myriad. So we will have a 7/7 flyer attacking one of our opponents, and we will, when it attacks, create a token copy of it, attacking each of our other opponents or a planeswalker they control as well. And then those tokens will go away at the end of combat. So I wanted to show this interaction to highlight that a lot of the time, by taking Captain Nebula and making our creature into a vehicle and then crewing it, we get a power and toughness boost because Angelic Arbiter will become a 7/7. Cyberman Squadron will also become a 7/7 because it's 7 mana. So being able to throw big creatures, especially evasive ones, at our opponents and give them Myriad, it's hard to say no to that. But sometimes they are legendary, like Drakoseth, Maw of Flames. Drakoseth is a 7/7 dragon for 4 and 3 red with flying. Whenever Drakoseth attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each of up to 2 other targets. So you get to hit something for 4. It can be a player. It can even be the player you're attacking. And then you get to lightning bolt up to 2 other things. So I want to be clear, the way Drakoseth is phrased, Drakoseth has to do the 4 damage. And the 3 damage, the 2 instances of 3 damage are optional. Either way, Drakoseth does not get a power and toughness bonus from being a big flyer. But maybe we want to have it become an artifact creature for other reasons. In any case, Drakoseth is a good example of how if we have all of these big heavy hitters in here and most of them are creatures, as opposed to some other commander decks, we don't have to attack with just one thing. We could make Angelic Arbiter into our vehicle with Captain Nebula, crew it, attack with it, get our Cyberman Squadron trigger without attacking with the Cyberman Squadron, and also attack with Drakoseth at the same time and clear the path. So lots of good things going on here. Again, that's the benefit of running a bunch of things that are really expensive. And we'll, again, talk about how we get there soon enough. Dream Pillager is another dragon for 5 red. It is a 4/4 flyer that says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we exile that many cards from the top of our library. That is, a number of cards equal to the damage we dealt. And until end of turn, we can cast spells from among those exiled cards. So any lands we hit are gone forever, but at least we can cast some spells. This is one of the few cards on the deck that sort of encourages us to hold up our mana and not cast spells prior to combat. We have some other cards that do the opposite. But again, Dream Pillager is a 7/7 dragon if we have turned him into a vehicle and crewed him using Captain Nebula. It's also worth remembering, the Seriema, once we've hit a number of charge counters, 7 or more charge counters on the Seriema is a 5/5 flyer as well. So maybe we don't want to use her to attack. Maybe we want to use her to crew something that Captain Nebula has made into a vehicle. Now, usually we're going to want to just use Captain Nebula, but the Seriema is there for a good reason as well. And we'll talk about that soon. Next up is Elish Norn. Elish Norn, Grand Cenobite, is the original Elish Norn. She's 5 white for a 4/7 Praetor with Vigilance that says other creatures you control get +2/+2, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. I'll give you a preview of what comes later in this video. There are no Wraths in this deck, but Elish Norn is the closest thing we have to it. Anything our opponents control with toughness 2 or less just dies. Anything our opponents control with higher toughness than that then takes damage to their reduced toughness will just die. And all of our things, even crewed vehicles, because those are creatures we control, gets +2/+2. Elish Norn is generally great removal bait. People will go after her as quick as they can because she just ruins the game for people who are playing tokens decks, people who are trying to build up their little creatures. She's a lot of fun. And we can attack with her as a 7/7 if we want to crew her as a vehicle. And just to remind everyone, just like the Angelic Arbiter and Drakoseth and the Dream Pillager keep flying when they're turned into vehicles, Elish Norn keeps vigilance. So we'll be able to attack with her, and assuming she doesn't die, also block with her. Glorious Enforcer is, what a beautiful card, is a 5/5 angel for 5 white. It has flying and lifelink, and like I just said, it will retain both of those abilities when it is crewed into a vehicle and becomes a 7/7 vehicle. But it also says at the beginning of combat, if you have more life than an opponent, Glorious Enforcer gains double strike until end of turn. So being able to hit with a flying, double striking 7/7 with lifelink, we are starting to get more likely to have more life than an opponent. Just keep in mind, it says an opponent. It does not say we have to have the most life at the table. We just have to have one opponent who has less life than us at the time this trigger resolves, which is at the beginning of combat. So, next up is Hamletback Goliath. I really like this guy. It is a 6/6 giant warrior for 6 and a red that says whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may put a number of +1/+1 counters on Hamletback Goliath equal to the creature's power. So every time we have one of our cool creatures come in, big expensive creatures with pretty high power and toughness anyway, Hamletback Goliath will get that many +1/+1 counters on it if we choose to, and we're going to choose to. What's great about those counters, and this is a theme we'll see in a couple of other cards, is that Hamletback Goliath, if we decide to make him into a vehicle and then crew him, is a 7/7 with a whole bunch of counters on him. So if we've played, let's say, Glorious Enforcer, while Hamletback Goliath is out, we can put 5 counters on the Goliath because that's the power of Glorious Enforcer. Then we turn the Goliath into a vehicle with Captain Nebula and crew him. The Goliath is a 7/7 base power and toughness, but it has 5 counters on it, so it's a 12/12. That's a lot of fun. No evasion or anything on the Goliath, but sometimes a 12/12 will just do the job for you. And that's going to continue to happen, the counters being put on the Goliath, every time we play another creature. Havoc Eater is a 3/3 elemental with flying for 5 and 2 red that says when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, goad up to 1 target creature that opponent controls. So goad means that creature must attack if able and cannot attack us if it has other options. It also says put X +1/+1 counters on Havoc Eater, where X is the total power of creatures goaded this way. So worst case scenario, Havoc Eater comes in for 7 mana, it goads nothing. That means we just have a 3/3 flyer that we can turn into a 7/7 flyer if we turn it into a vehicle. But if we hit a 1/1 from each of our opponents, those 1/1s are goaded, and we'll put 3 +1/+1 counters on the Havoc Eater, assuming we had 3 opponents, of course. But if we hit our opponent's biggest and scariest creatures, the ones that we want not to attack us and we want to attack our opponents, we're likely to get a lot more counters on our flyer, which, again, when we turn into a vehicle, is a 7/7 flyer on its own. Next up, we have Judoon Enforcers, another Doctor Who card. 5, a red and a white, gives us an 8/8 alien rhino soldier with trample. Now, notably, this is one of the few cards we have in the deck that has a base power and toughness that is higher than its mana value. So turning it into a vehicle may not be advantageous to us unless we have something else that would make it worth doing that for. For example, Cybermen Squadron. Judoon Enforcers is not an artifact creature, so it wouldn't trigger the Cybermen. But if we want it to be just a 7/7 with trample and turn that into a 7/7 with trample for everyone, that's still a pretty good trade-off. Especially because Judoon Enforcers says no more than 1 creature can attack you each combat. So we're protected. We have things that have generally pretty big powers and toughnesses, and we're able to block whatever our opponents are throwing at us unless it's just too big, and that just happens anyway. But they can only hit us with 1 thing at a time. In addition, Judoon Enforcers has Suspend 6 for 1, a red and a white. Let's say we have this in our hand, and it's turn 3, we have a red source and a white source and something else out, and we don't have anything better to do, even playing our commander. We can suspend this, which means it goes into exile, and then we put 6 time counters on it. We take 1 off each upkeep, and when we take the last one off, this one we can cast the Enforcers for free without paying its mana cost, and it has haste. So that is a cool option for us. I don't know how often it's going to come up, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is a little bit of a slow deck sometimes and a little bit of a fast one other times. So options are always better. We have the classic Meteor Golem. 7 generic mana for a 3/3 Golem. When it enters, destroy a non-land permanent your opponent controls. That's just good. And if we want, we can turn this into, like I said, an artifact creature, a vehicle, which we can then crew into an artifact creature, and it attacks as 7/7. And if we have Cybermen Squadron out, Myriad will trigger as well. We'll get 2 more Meteor Golems, and they will get their enters triggers, so we can blow up 2 more things that our opponents control. We also have the classic Platinum Angel. Platinum Angel is a 7 generic mana angel that's a 4/4 with flying that says, you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. What a cool card. And a gorgeous Braum art. Yeah, I could talk about Platinum Angel for a long time. But what's better than Platinum Angel? A Platinum Angel that, for the cost of tapping your commander, is a 7/7 flyer. I think that seems pretty fun. We have this really cool Lord of the Rings card in Riders of the Mark. It is a 7/4 human knight for 6 and a red, but it costs 1 less for each human we control. Our commander, Captain Nebula, is a human. We have a total of 4 humans in the deck, including him, so it's not likely to get that much of a discount, but even 1 mana of discount is not terrible. And it doesn't change the mana value, so there's no way we can lose Riders of the Mark from Captain Nebula's delayed trigger, or Captain Nebula, the trigger that Captain Nebula gives it when it gives it the crash landing ability. So Riders of the Mark is a 7/4 trample and haste. We could crew it if we want into a 7/7 trample and haste. And it says at the beginning of the end step, our end step, if Riders of the Mark attacked this turn, return it to its owner's hand, and if we do, we create a number of 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens equal to its toughness. Now, if we were to have turned it into a vehicle and crewed it, its toughness is 7. So we get 7 human creature tokens. And this thing bounces to our hand, assuming, of course, it survived combat. And then, next turn, we've got 7 humans out. So Riders of the Mark only costs 1 red, because all of those humans discounted. We get out our 7/4 trample haste again, and we don't have to crew it this time if we don't want to. We can just attack with it. But if we want to crew it in order to get 3 more little friends, that's also a possibility. Just a fun card. Next up is Skyline Despot. This is a 5/5 dragon with flying for 5 and 2 red. When Skyline Despot enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. The Monarch is such a great mechanic. It's just a lot of fun, and it draws you cards. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you're the Monarch, so if we were able to keep the Monarchy until our next turn, we make a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. We just get a bonus dragon. Now, how many bonus dragons do we need to get for this to be worth it? I think the number is 0. I think that just having a dragon that gives us the Monarchy and we can crew it into a 7/7 flyer on our turn, I think that's pretty great. Even if we get 1 dragon, I think we've gotten our value out of it. This is just a fun card, and the Monarchy just makes Commander games go faster and be more fun. Now we have a non-creature, which is in the heavy hitters section because we can turn Spine of Ishsaw into a vehicle and crew it with our commander. It's a 7/7 when we do, but more importantly, when it enters the battlefield, destroy target permanent. We can blow up lands with this, we can blow up our opponent's commanders, whatever we want, we can get rid of it. And when Spine of Ishsaw is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return it to its owner's hand. So unless our opponents get rid of this by exiling it, we just slam in on the attack with this thing, hoping they're going to block, hoping they're going to trade especially, or waste some of their removal. And then it goes back to our hand, we cast it again next turn, or maybe even the same turn, blow something else up, and we're ready with another 7/7 attack from it. Just a really annoying card, and it's going to get our opponents to get rid of their exile removal, I think. That has been my experience of it. So we have Stalking Vengeance here, which is a 5/5 avatar with haste for 5 red that says whenever another creature you control dies, it deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. Stalking Vengeance is in here so that we have a good reason to attack with our things even though we know they're going to die. it lets us have one last retributive bite, or just direct damage to our opponent's face. Oh, I'm sorry, it's a bite to a planeswalker or player. So just a good time with Stalking Vengeance there. So next up is Terror of Mount Velis. 5 red for a 5/5 flying dragon with double strike, and when this creature enters, creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn. There's not much to have to say about double strike. Being able to come in with a double striking Spinavish Saw, a 7/7 on the ground, is still pretty great, and then leaving behind this 5/5 flying double striker that we can turn into a 7/7 flying double striker if we want to let Captain Rex crew it. That's pretty great. Next up, Threefold Thunderhulk. It's another one of our cards that comes in with counters on it. So this is a 7 mana 0/0 gnome that comes in with 3 counters on it. So by default, it's sort of 3/3. But when it enters, or when it attacks, we make a number of 1/1 gnome artifact creature tokens that are colorless equal to its power. So it also has the ability, pay 2, sacrifice another artifact, and put a 1/1 counter on it. That seems pretty good. A good way to get rid of our vehicles if it looks like they are being targeted with something that is non-exile removal by our opponents. You know, maybe we want to just get rid of Spinavish Saw ourselves to put a counter on it. Or maybe our Stalking Vengeance is being blocked, or rather targeted with a kill spell. We want to sacrifice it to this before it dies. That, of course, is while it is a vehicle, because vehicles are artifacts. But even more fun, because this comes in with 3 counters on it, when we turn this into a vehicle and crew it and attack with it, it attacks as a 7/7, or rather as a 10/10, because it's 7 power and toughness base plus the 3 counters. And then when it attacks, we make 10 gnome artifact creature tokens. Those things might be the ones that we sacrifice to pump it up later. If we need something to spend our mana on, I guarantee we've already got it in the deck, but Threefold Thunderhulk is here to give us a good mana sink just in case. Now we're out of the 7 mana value cards, and we're into the most expensive card in the deck currently, which is Avacyn, Angel of Hope. Avacyn is an 8/8 angel for 5 white with flying, vigilance, indestructible, and other permanents you control halved indestructible. So yes, it's true, we have some things that we care about going away, being destroyed somehow perhaps. But if we've got Avacyn out, we probably don't need to get the value out of those other things being destroyed. Giving our stuff indestructible is just crazy. An indestructible 7/7 flying double striker, if we crew Terror of Mount Velis, it's just crazy. Just a delight. And we have this great Jason Chan art to look at the whole time. Avacyn, of course, has a mana value that is equal to her power and toughness. So we don't have a lot of reason to turn her into a vehicle, but we can if we want to get something like, if we wanted to get a different effect from the fact that she's an artifact or an artifact creature. So yes. Another legendary, we have Bosch, Iron Golem. Love Bosch. Bosch is a 6/7 golem for 8 with trample that says for 3 and a red and sacrifice an artifact, Bosch deals damage equal to the sacrificed artifact's mana value to any target. So I don't know why we would want to get rid of our lovely Avacyn. I don't know why Soren Markov felt the need to. But if we did, we could crew Avacyn as a vehicle, or rather we could just turn Avacyn into a vehicle, crew her, attack with her. She still has flying, vigilance, and indestructible, but then at post-combat, maybe our opponent has 8 or less life. We can sacrifice vehicle Avacyn to Bosch and do 8 damage to our opponent's face, and they're just dead. Maybe that's how we win the game. Bosch is a lot of fun, and attacking with a vehicle that's an 8/8 trampler, if we crew Bosch, not a bad thing either. Cityscape Leveler is another one of these cards that costs 8 and has a power and toughness of 8/8. It's a construct with trample. But when we cast this spell, and whenever it attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent, and its controller creates a tapped Power Stone token. We don't really mind the Power Stone, because we're getting to just blow something up. We're getting to, when we cast this, and when it attacks, do our best Meteor Golem impression. So repeated attacks with that are just incredibly powerful. And even if we don't crew this, well, we might, but even if we don't, doesn't matter. Plus it has Unearth for 8. So we can bring it back from the graveyard to the battlefield, and it has haste, and we know that if it goes anywhere else after that, it's going to be exiled, but all we need to get is one more attack with it and one more trigger from its attack. Cityscape Leveler is just a lot of fun. Next up, we have Maelstrom Colossus. 8 mana for a 7/7 Golem with Cascade. All of its rules text, but that's enough. Cascade means when we cast this spell, while it's still on the stack, we will exile cards from the top of our library until we exile a non-land card that costs less than 8. And then we get to cast that for free, take all of the other cards we exile to put them on the bottom of our library in a random order, and then Maelstrom Colossus will be able to resolve as well. So we get a 7/7 that doesn't have any other abilities, but we can attack with it as an 8/8, or just block with it as a 7/7. That's not terrible. But it's not a 7/7 or even an 8/8 for 8. It's a 7/7 and something else, mana value 7 or less, for 8. Most of the things in our deck are less than 8 mana value, even though many of them are 7 mana value. This is a great way to get a 2-for-1. Next up, we have another expensive card from the Final Fantasy set. This is Summon Knights of Round for 6 white. It is a saga creature. So it has a power and toughness of 3/3 and is a saga. When it comes in, it's going to get a lore counter, and once it gets its 5th lore counter and its Chapter 5 ability has resolved, it will be sacrificed. So we only get this for a little while, but that's not terrible. It comes in, it is a 3/3 with Indestructible, and on its 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th turns, it makes 3 2/2 white knight creature tokens. So we end up with 12 knights, and then on its last turn, Ultimate End says, other creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. Put an indestructible counter on each of them. So that +2/+2 lasts until end of turn, but the indestructible lasts as long as it's on the battlefield. That's crazy. In addition, this thing is indestructible on its own, and because it's a creature, we can crew it as we've turned it into a vehicle. I believe that the new rules for how sagas work and how they would lose their types doesn't apply to this. Like, we're not going to just let it, it's not going to die due to having more lore counters on it than 0. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it wouldn't have died if this had existed before the saga rule change. But either way, we can turn it into an 8/8 indestructible and attack with it, and it's still pumping out all these white knight creature tokens. Just a lot of fun. It's 8 mana, and it should be a lot of fun. But in my opinion, what's a more fun way to pay 6 white? It's Zetalpa, Primal Dawn. We've seen Zetalpa in so many precons, and people just disdain 1-800 Are You Flappin'? But I really like the bird. Just a good time. Zetalpa is 6 white for a 4/8 Elder Dinosaur with keyword soup. Flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, and indestructible. Zetalpa, the sky takes flight and the earth trembles. If we want, we can turn Zetalpa into a vehicle, crew it with our commander or anyone else, and attack as an 8/8. Flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, indestructible. No one will disrespect Zetalpa after that. Next up, we're into the 9 mana values with Blazing Archon. Blazing Archon costs 6 white for a 5/6 Archon with flying, and creatures can't attack you. I don't have to say too much about that. We will just not be killed. That's not true. There's lots of people playing Spellslinger, lots of people playing Aristocrats. There's lots of ways to die even with this out, but there's not a lot of ways to die to combat damage, or to worry about our creatures dying in combat if we haven't set them up for that by attacking with them. Blazing Archon is just a big splashy play, like so many of these, to make our opponents say, ugh, well, I don't really have a way of dealing with not attacking you, but I do have a removal spell for the Blazing Archon, which means maybe we get in with a 9/9 flyer at some point, but even if not, they wasted a removal spell while we're pumping out other big things. Alright, next up is Cavern Horde Dragon from the Lord of the Rings Commander set. It is a 9 mana, 7 red for a 6/6 dragon, but it costs an amount less equal to the number of artifacts an opponent controls. The greatest number of artifacts, rather. So we look at our opponent's artifact counts. Maybe someone has 2, maybe someone has 1, maybe someone has 4, and this costs 4 less because it's the greatest amount. It is normally a 6/6 flyer with trample and haste, but of course we would attack with it as a 9/9 if we decide to make it into a vehicle and crew it. And it says, whenever Cavern Horde Dragon deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token for each artifact that player controls. So it incentivizes us to attack the player that has the most artifacts. Treasure tokens are pretty common in Commander. Maybe they want to sacrifice their treasures in response so we don't get a lot of treasures, but they still got hit with a 6/6 flying trample haste, or a 9/9. That, if we get some treasures off of it, we're going to be able to use those ramping into our other big things, like Rhea Dawnbringer. For 6 white, we get a 4/6 angel with flying that says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Did someone get rid of our Avacyn? Did someone somehow put her in the graveyard? What about our Zatalpa? Maybe they did a Toxic Deluge and everything just died from this. Rhea gets one of our things back every turn, and it might be something that Cityscape Leveler, when it this is a cast trigger, it might be something like Meteor Golem that just blows something up when it comes back, or even Spine of Fish Saw won't come back because it's not a creature, but that's okay. We could get Knights of the Round back, get a lot more Knight tokens, lots of great things that Rhea can bring back. I don't know that I have to explain how good it is to just get a free creature from our graveyard to the battlefield every upkeep. Triplicate Titan is another 9 mana spell. For 9 generic mana, we get a 9/9 golem with flying, vigilance, and trample, and when it dies, we get a 3/3 golem with flying, a 3/3 with vigilance, and a 3/3 with trample. The Triplicate Titan breaks into 3 parts. But if we were to bring it back with Rhea Dawnbringer, now we have that 9/9 again, it'll break into 3 more parts. We get to just have a lot of tokens. You've seen there's a little bit of a token sub-theme in this deck, being able to deal with things on the ground because we don't have a lot of low mana value creatures to do it for us. So yeah, Triplicate Titan is a lot of fun. But again, another one of these cards that has power and toughness equal to its mana value already. Similarly, we have Desolation Twin, 10 generic mana for a 10/10 Eldrazi, but Desolation Twin gets a little bit of a pass because when we cast it, we make a Eldrazi creature token that is also a 10/10. So for 10 mana, we get 20 power and toughness. Just like I've said before, with both of these, if we want to turn this into a vehicle and crew it with turn it into a vehicle with the captain and crew it, maybe we get some value out of that. Like both of these can be helped with the Cybermen Squadron. We'll get it with Myriad. It won't die at the end. It'll be exiled because that's how Myriad works. But the Desolation Twin tokens would stick around. The Triplicate Titan won't be dying, but it might die through combat. Next up, we have another Eldrazi, Pathrazer of Ulamog. For 11 mana, we get a 9/9 with Annihilator 3, meaning whenever it attacks, defending player sacrifices 3 permanents, whatever they choose, and it can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. Hard to block, it's a 9/9, it has Annihilator 3, and they've just had to sacrifice things to Annihilator 3 when they attack. But what if it's an 11/11? Because the captain has made it into a vehicle. Just crazy. Finally, from the Assassin's Creed set, we have Excalibur, Sword of Eden. 12 mana for a legendary equipment that costs X less, where X is the total mana value of historic permanents you control. Now, historic means artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. We have a few sagas in this, like Summon Knights of the Round. We have plenty of artifacts, like Triplicate Titan and Maelstrom Colossus. And we have, like I mentioned, several different legendaries. Rhea Dawnbringer's legendary, Avacyn is legendary, even not Spine of Ishtar, I'm sorry. There is another legendary non-creature in here that we've already seen. So yeah, Excalibur comes in, probably costs a lot less than 12 by the time we get out there. And then it says equipped creature gets +10/+0 and has vigilance. That's pretty impressive. It has equipped legendary creature for 2, so it can't be equipped to anything that isn't legendary. But that could be the Seriema. Fly in with the Seriema with +10/+0 and vigilance. Or even Ray of Dawnbringer or something. But we can also turn this sword into a vehicle. Crew it, thanks to the captain, and attack with a 12/12. That's a good option for us. We've got 2 different ways we can play this, and Excalibur is, again, like so many of these things, a big splashy card that's going to make people at the table go, wait, what did you play? Oh no, how are we going to deal with this? So that is our game plan. We've seen we have big, heavy hitters, but to supplement that, we have synergy cards. These are important because they help Captain Nebula's triggered ability. Strionic Resonator says for 2 mana, it's an artifact, and we can pay 2 and tap it to copy target triggered ability we control. We can choose 2 targets for the copy. Captain Nebula's ability is a triggered ability. It triggers at the start of combat. So if we want to turn 2 things, like Bosch and Cityscape Leveler, into vehicles, we can with Strionic Resonator, just for the cost of 2. The same is true of Lithoform Engine. Lithoform Engine costs 4, so it's twice as expensive as the Resonator, but it is itself a legendary artifact, and we can do the same thing as the Resonator. Pay 2, tap it, copy an activated or triggered ability we control. This can hit activated abilities as well, of course. Lithoform Engine can also pay 3 and tap it to copy an instant or sorcery, or pay 4 and tap it to copy a permanent we control, a permanent spell that is, so something on the stack. So Lithoform Engine only hits things on the stack. Activated abilities, triggered abilities, instant spells, sorcery spells, and permanent spells. But even if all we use it for is just to copy Captain Nebula's ability, it's still pretty powerful. And it lets us double up on things, or even triple up with Strionic Resonator out there, so that we can get lots more value out of lots more vehicles coming in to our opponents. So that is our game plan. Let's look at our support cards, starting with Card Advantage. As you can see, and I've mentioned this every time, I just use the word draw to make it simple to tag these things, but it's Card Advantage. We start with our Mind Stone. 2 mana for a mana rock. We have a lot of mana rocks in this. Taps for colorless, or pay 1 and tap and sack it, draw a card. Great card. Similarly, Commander Sphere, 3 mana, it taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. Now, that's Boros, that's red or white in this deck, but if the Seriema were green, let's say, it would tap for 1 mana of any color in both of our commander's color identities, because the color identity is shared for the deck. In addition, Commander Sphere, we can just sacrifice it to draw a card. So as opposed to Mind Stone, which would have to tap, we could tap this for mana and then sacrifice it and draw a card. We also have Lochiel, Clockwork Scholar, one of our legendary creatures that happens not to be super expensive. Lochiel is 2 and a white for a 2/4 Elephant Artificer with 2 abilities. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking artifact creatures you control. So if we attack with one of our artifact creatures, or a bunch of our artifact creatures, or any creature we've made into a vehicle with Captain Nebula, those creatures will not take combat damage. It's just prevented. So that's also important because it would prevent damage from Death Touchers. If they're not doing damage, they can't do lethal damage with Death Touch. It will prevent the damage done by Lifelinkers. If they're not doing damage, their controller can't gain life from it. Prevention is just very powerful, especially when we're attacking with a lot of big artifact creatures in this deck. But that's not all. Lochiel also says, whenever 1 or more artifact creatures enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card, but only once per turn. That's pretty great. We have lots of artifact creatures in this deck, but I want to be clear, it does not trigger if you turn a creature already on the battlefield into a vehicle, because that creature is not entering the battlefield. It's not entering, it's already entered. It's just becoming a new type. Still, Lochiel is going to draw us some cards. We also have Smuggler's Share. I really like this card from the new Capenna Commander decks. 2 and a white for an enchantment that says at the beginning of each end step, so not just our end steps, we draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards this turn, and then we make a treasure token for each opponent who had 2 or more lands enter under their control this turn. So people love to ramp, and if they do, during their end step, we're going to get a treasure. People love to draw cards, and if they draw more than just the one in their draw step, we're going to be able to get a draw from that as well. Smuggler's Share is a lot of fun. The Restoration of Iganjo is, I just really love this card. For 2 and a white, we get a saga that says, search your library for a basic plains, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle. So it's not really a ramp, it just draws us that card. But that's Chapter 1. Chapter 2 is, you may discard a card. When you do, return target permanent card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Sometimes this is ramp, because we can discard a card, and if there is now a card in our graveyard that is a land, let's say it's even the card we discarded, we can put that on the battlefield tapped. But maybe we've sacrificed our Mind Stone and we want to get that onto the battlefield tapped. Either way, we're getting more mana out into our mana pool, or our potential mana pool, than we were able to do with our single land drop each turn. Finally, during turn 3, we exile the Restoration of Iganjo and then return it to the battlefield transformed, which is Architect of Restoration. It is a 3/4 Fox Monk with Vigilance that says whenever it attacks or blocks, make a 1/1 colorless spirit. That's pretty great. If we are able to block something, and even if we trade, we leave behind a 1/1. But having a 3/4 with Vigilance, that really helps us. Even if all we do with it is use it to crew vehicles. This is just an extra creature we just get to keep on the battlefield, even after we've gotten plenty of value out of it. Next up is Hedron Archive. For 4 mana, we have an artifact that taps for 2 colorless, and we can also pay 2, tap, and sack it to draw 2 cards. So it's sort of like a double Mind Stone. Pretty good. We have the Sad Robot. Solemn Simulacrum is a 2/2 golem for 4 that when it enters, we get to Rampant Growth. We search our library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped and shuffle, and when it dies, we may draw a card. Both of these are optional, but generally people will do them. Solemn Simulacrum can crew just as easily as Captain Nebula can, but also blocks very well, because when it dies, we want to draw the card off of it. Dream Pillager we've already seen. It doesn't really give us card draw, but it does exile cards from the top of our library, which we can then cast until end of turn. That's card advantage. That just gives us access to good things. Another one of these cards, like I mentioned, that maybe encourages us to keep our mana open until after combat. We've already seen these other cards as well. They all give us card advantage in a form. Skyline Despot gives us card advantage from the Monarchy. Maelstrom Colossus gives us card advantage because it will let us cast a free spell with Cascade. And Rhea gets our creatures back from the graveyard to the battlefield just because she got to stick around. Pretty good. Next, let's go to our acceleration, which again, we call ramp. I think everyone knows what Soul Ring does. 1 mana for an artifact that taps for 2, gotta include it. Same is true of Arcane Signet. 2 mana for an artifact that taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. Seems great. A lot of 2 mana rocks in this. Boros Signet is 2 mana, and it requires you to have another mana to spend, but it filters that mana into a red and a white. So as long as you've got a land to tap as well, Boros Signet is going to give you a red and a white from tapping 2 mana sources. That's pretty great. Felwar Stone, I don't usually include in a 2 or 1 or 0 color commander deck. But in this deck, I want to have enough acceleration to be able to get up to our big spells, and so as many 2 mana rocks as we can find, we're going to run. That's true, like I mentioned, of Mind Stone, but also of Marble Diamond and Fire Diamond. These diamonds come in tapped and tap for only 1 color, so they're worse than Arcane Signet, but they are 2 mana rocks. Even if Felwar Stone doesn't give us red or white, just comes in untapped and taps for colorless, or rather not colorless, but a color that is not one of our colors, it still taps for something. We can use it to pay generic mana costs. So lots of 2 mana rocks in this deck, as well as the Birth of Meletus, another enchantment saga that I love. For 1 and a white, we search our library for a basic planes, reveal it, put it in our hand, and shuffle. It's the same first chapter as the Restoration of Igancho. Again, not really ramp, but it does fix our mana, and I feel like it qualifies, especially because it's a turn 2 play. Then, Chapter 2, we create an 0/4 colorless wall artifact creature token with Defender, so we've got a little bit of defense for ourselves. And then Chapter 3, we gain 2 life. Not a huge amount of value, but always welcome. Next up is another 2-mana rock in Thought Vessel. Comes in untapped, taps for colorless, we have no maximum hand size. Do we care about having no maximum hand size? We might, but probably not. All we care about is just being able to have more mana available to ourselves to get these big buddies out. We've seen our Commander Sphere, so let's talk about Skyclave Relic. It is a 3-mana indestructible artifact that taps for 1 mana of any color, but it also has Kicker 3. If we kick it, which means we're paying the kicker cost plus its casting cost, a total of 6, when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, we make 2 tapped tokens that are copies of it. So we pay 3 and we get a rock that we can tap for any color right away. Or we pay 6 and we get that same rock untapped that we can tap for any color right away, and 2 extra copies of it that we can use for the rest of the game, all of which are indestructible. Pretty good. Smuggler's Share, we've seen the Restoration of Igancho. We've got Worn Power Stone. It comes in tapped, it costs 3, but it taps for 2. This is a much worse Soul Ring, but once it's come in and untapped, it's another Soul Ring. That's pretty great. We've also got Hedron Archive and Solemn Simulacrum, as we've already seen, and finally Gilded Lotus. For 5 mana, we can get an artifact that comes in untapped and taps for 3 mana of any one color. So big investment, but it fixes our mana basically as much as we're going to need it to for the rest of the game. Now I want to be clear about all of these things. Any of these permanents, these ones that were in the draw section and these ones now in the ramp section, the acceleration section, we can turn any of these into vehicles with our commander, with Captain Nebula. Captain Nebula can take any of these things, and though they risk crash landing, it doesn't matter because we can throw them in there. So let's say, for example, we attacked with Skyclave Relic or with one of the copies of Skyclave Relic. It turns into a 3/3 vehicle with crew 2. We crew it, we attack with it, and maybe it does damage. Presumably it's going to do damage, otherwise why are we attacking with it? When it does damage, we'll roll that 6-sided die, and if the result is its mana value, which would be 3 even for the copies, because they're copies of an artifact that has mana value 3, it will sacrifice itself and then do 3 damage to any target. We'll just get a free lightning bolt. I think that's pretty great. So we've seen our ramp. Let's get moving onto our removal, our interaction. So this is a white deck, so I'm running Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares. Anyone who's watched my other videos knows that this is what I do every time. Path and Swords are both instants. They both exile a target creature. Path gives the creature's controller a rampant growth. They search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. Whereas Swords, even better, just gives that controller life equal to the power of the exiled creature. Terrific removal spells. If you're in white, you should be running these. In red, we have a Braid. I run a Braid in a lot of things. 1 in a red for an instant that either deals 3 damage to a creature or destroys an artifact. Pretty simple, pretty flexible. I like it. We also have Alibu, Ancient Witness. Alibu is a 4/5 golem for 3 a red and a white that says other artifact creatures you control have haste. So I mentioned before, there are ways in this deck for things to get haste. Alibu is a great one of them. But more importantly, whenever 1 or more artifact creatures we control attack, which means our vehicles, Alibu deals X damage to any target, and we scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts we control. So if we have a whole bunch of mana rocks, this is one of the times when we might want to attack, or we might want to cast spells before combat. We use our mana rocks to get them tapped down. We either attack with an artifact creature or crew something, turn something into a vehicle and crew it with the captain's ability, or both. And when we attack, as long as we're attacking with at least one artifact creature, Alibu will count all of our tapped artifacts and will scry that much after we do that much damage to any target. It might be our opponent, it might be a blocker, it might be something threatening. Just pretty great. Alibu is 100% worth the 5 mana. We've seen all of these, and we've seen these as well. So that is our removal suite. A little bit light on removal in a deck that's probably going to get a lot of aggro, but it's our base of 10, which is fine. And it gives us space to do the fun stuff. And we're here to do the fun stuff. As for Wraths, like I mentioned, we've got Elish Norn. She's the closest thing we need to a Wrath. I'm not worried about it. So let's move on to our support cards, our additional cards rather. Starting with these Anthems. Anthem is what I've used as a representation of something that helps all of our other cards. Alibu helps our things by giving them haste. Elish Norn helps our things by giving the +2/+2. Knights of the Round helps our things when it hits its final chapter ability by giving everything +2/+2, just like Elish Norn. But this only lasts until end of turn. But what doesn't is that indestructible counter each one gets. The only other card in this set is our 4-mana Human Pilot, which is a 3/1 flyer, Aeronaut Admiral. Aeronaut Admiral gives all of our vehicles flying. So anything we turn into a vehicle with Captain Nebula is going to fly. Why doesn't it fly on its own as a vehicle? Well, the Captain can pilot anything. I guess that's fine. At least the Seriema flies on its own. But if it didn't, Aeronaut Admiral would make it so it did. Next up, we have some ways of doing extra damage. One of them is a modal double-faced card. So if we really need a land, we've got a tap land that taps for either of our colors in Legion Stronghold. But Legion Leadership says until end of turn, double target creature's power and it gains first strike. So that works for basically anything we have in here. And it's not base power, or rather it's not printed power rather. So if we have this Maelstrom Colossus and we've turned it into a vehicle with the captain and crewed it, it has power and toughness 8/8. We cast Legion Leadership and it becomes a 16/8 and gains first strike. So that's just going to kill basically anything that blocks it. In a way, this is a removal spell, but more importantly, it can do 16 damage to your opponent's face. That's pretty good. Even better is if we have Blade Historian out. Blade Historian is a 2/3 human cleric for 4 mana, all of which are hybrid Boros mana. So we can do 4 red, 4 white, or any combination of them. That says attacking creatures we control have double strike. So they have to be attacking, but they just have double strike. Everything's got double strike. Anything we try to attack with that we've turned into a vehicle suddenly has double strike and is suddenly a much bigger threat. If our opponent doesn't block something with double strike, it's going to do damage twice. And so after blockers, maybe we have Legion Leadership that we can throw in there and double its power. It gains first strike, but that's redundant with the double strike. So back to that example, if we're attacking with an 8/8 Maelstrom Colossus that our opponents know has double strike, they're like, oh, I don't want to take 16 damage, but I guess I will. Oop, suddenly they're taking 32. That's pretty fun. Even more fun if we have Fiery Emancipation out. Fiery Emancipation costs 3 red for an enchantment that says if a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage to that permanent or player instead. So we have a replacement effect here that just makes it do an enormous amount of damage. In that prior example, they're going to take 16 damage on their first attack, which becomes 48 damage, and then another 48 with their first combat damage step, and then double strike. They'll be doing another 48 for a total of 96 damage with Fiery Emancipation out. That's crazy. Also notable though, Fiery Emancipation costs 6 mana. So we can turn this into a 6/6 vehicle with Crew 2 with the captain. Yes, it's possible. We have a 1 in 6 chance that when it does damage, it's going to be sacrificed. We're going to have to sacrifice it and then have it do damage. But if that's the case, it means it's done damage, which is tripled by its own ability. So it's going to have done 18 damage to something, and then do 18 damage when it zots something with its triggered ability. Very powerful. Different color for almost the same mana value.
3 white for True Conviction. It's an enchantment that gives all of our creatures double strike and lifelink. Double strike here, but also lifelink. If you're wondering, do these interact? Yes, they do. So if we were to turn True Conviction into a vehicle and then crew it and attack with it, it's going to have double strike, it's going to have lifelink because it itself is a creature, and that damage for both the first strike and regular damage steps is going to get tripled. And you're going to gain that much life from it. Pretty good. We've seen Cyberman Squadron get extra damage from having extra attackers. Terramat Velis get extra damage from having double strike, lots of good double strike. And then City on Fire. City on Fire is basically Fiery Emancipation again, in that it says if one of our sources deals damage to a permanent or player, we triple it, but it costs 1 more mana, so it's 7 mana, so it is technically a heavy hitter as well, but it also has Convoke. So if we have a bunch of creatures out, like all of these tokens we've been making, we can tap them to pay for the cost of City on Fire. Either each one pays for a generic mana, or if the token or the creature we're tapping is red, it pays for one of the red. We could end up putting City on Fire on the battlefield without tapping a single mana source, just creatures. And now all of our stuff does triple damage. Just a lot of fun. Finally, we've got a section for protection. We've seen a lot of these already. We've seen all of these already. Low Shield protects our creatures by preventing combat damage that they would take when they're attacking. Angelic Arbiter protects us by making it so players have to choose between attacking or casting spells. Havoc Eater protects us by goading creatures so they can't attack us at least that next turn. Judon Enforcers protects us by making it so we're only going to be able to be attacked by 1 creature at most. Platinum Angel makes it so we can't lose the game and our opponents can't win the game. Avacyn makes all of our things indestructible. Knights of the Round gives everything indestructible counters eventually, and Blazing Archon means we can't be attacked at all. Lots of protection, lots of good stuff. So, last section is our lands. We have in this deck 26 basics. I used the Edge of Eternity basics that we've seen previewed just for style. 26 basics between 12 mountains and 14 plains. The mana value split is pretty even. It's a little bit heavier on white, but overall we've got a surfeit of mana to cast things with. But I wanted to go a little heavier on the white just to follow the slight imbalance that we have, and also to make sure that we can cast the Seriema if we need to. Next up, we have Boros Garrison for our 1 bounce land. Bounce lands come in tapped, and when they do, we have to return a land we control to our owner's hand, which means if it's the first one that comes out, we're going to have to bounce it. It bounces itself. But bounce lands are great because they tap for 2 mana, 1 of each of the 2 colors we have in, and they put another land that we've already played back into our hand, which means we're going to hit our land drop next turn. I think the bounce lands are great for commander decks. Even though this is a little slow for this deck, being able to ensure that we have enough an amount of mana that means we've gotten our land drops is just invaluable. We have an awful lot of basics in this, so we're running Clifftop Retreat as our check land. It comes in untapped if we control a mountain or plains when it enters, and it taps for 1 of either of our colors. You could, if you wanted, upgrade this to Sacred Foundry, the shock land. Just pay 2 mana and you don't have to worry about having a basic type in play. Next up, we have 1 filter land, which is Sun-Scorched Divide. I like these filter lands. I don't know how other people feel about them. Maybe if you're watching this, make a note in the comments and let me know what you think of filter lands. Regardless, it comes in untapped, and as long as we have 1 other mana available, we turn that into a red and a white, just like the Boros Signet above. After that, we have a few fixing lands here, 6 of them. Command Tower, of course, comes in untapped, taps for red or white. Perfect dual land. Path of Ancestry, if you watch my other videos, you know I'm a Path of Ancestry believer. It is just Command Tower that comes in tapped, so a second Command Tower is pretty great. But also, if we use the mana that it produces to cast a creature spell that shares a type with our commander, we scry 1. Now, the Seriema doesn't have any creature types, but we are definitely going to be casting Captain Rex Nebula, who shares creature types with himself. Captain Nebula is a human employee pilot. We only have him as an employee, but we have a few other humans, and we have at least one other pilot. So we might get a little surprise value out of Path of Ancestry, but even just being a tapped command tower is enough for me. We have, similarly, Temple of the False God. Some people hate this card. I think this card is very strong. It's a soul land. It taps for 2 mana. It just doesn't do it early in the game. We're running 38 lands, plus 1 more with that modal double-faced card. We're going to be fine getting up to Temple of the False God, and then we're ahead on our mana. Finally, we have 3 soft fetches. We have Evolving Wilds, which we play it, tap it, sacrifice it, find one of our basics, put it into play tapped. Cabaret Courtyard will do the same thing, but we can't hold on to it. It just automatically sacrifices itself, but then we gain a life. And Myriad Landscape enters tapped, taps for colorless, but we can also pay 2 and tap it to find 2 basics that share a land type and put them on the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. So Myriad Landscape we can use early game when we have plenty of mana and we want to shore up one of our colors. Next up we have Battlefield Forge as a pain land, just another untapped duel. We could upgrade this to a Surveil land or something along those lines, but Elegant Parlor would be great for this. It would be less fast, but it would cost us land and would give us a Surveil. I'm a big believer in the pathways. I think that they're really great, especially in 2-color decks. So Needle Verge or Pillar Verge pathway, depending on what we need at the time. And then finally, we've got 1 utility land, which is Demolition Field. It taps for colorless, or we can pay 2, tap it, and sack it to destroy a non-basic our opponent controls, and then they get to rampant growth, and so do we. So we are not down a land after this, neither are they, but if they've got some kind of annoying non-basic like Glacial Chasm out, we want to get rid of it. So there it is. Our curve is hysterical in this deck, and our average mana value is disgusting, but it works. And we get to play a lot of the big fun stuff that you usually have to either limit yourself to or worry you're not going to hit your land drops or not going to be able to get out. In a deck that's built around heavy hitters, you're going to be able to hit pretty heavily. I think that that's a great way to celebrate the ability to put vehicles in the command zone and also to celebrate Edge of Eternity's coming out. I think the Seriema is a really great card, really beautiful art, just really a lot of fun. So that rounds out Pride Month here on Second Monitor Magic. I'm still going to be posting Commander deck techs every Friday, or every Monday rather. So tune in. Like I said, Magic Presents Pride will probably happen again next year. I sure hope it does. If it follows the trend, it will happen on the final weekend of the month, just like it did this year and last year. So make sure to check with your LGS, and if you like these kinds of decks, make them and play them with your friends. If you like these kinds of decks or other kinds of decks, and you want to see more of me making them, let me know in the comments, leave a like, please subscribe, and yeah, thanks for engaging, thanks for watching everyone. And remember, magic is fun. You should play more Magic.